The phone call arrived on a Tuesday at 2:47 in the afternoon. My mother's voice had that particular warmth she deployed for announcements, the kind that expected delight without earning it. "Darling, you'll never guess," she began. I already disliked where this was going. She told me that Ethan and Madison had found their dream home. Not just any home. A house in Lake Forest. A real one. Not the kind you see on Instagram from another person's account. 4 bedrooms. Mahogany crown molding. One of those wraparound porches that exists to make people envious of other people's lives. Mother said it in the breathless way she used when describing acquisitions. Art, jewelry, homes. As if the object itself had chosen our family for safekeeping. "And the best part," she continued, "is that Dad and I were able to help with the down payment. A wedding present, really. For both of them." I said something appropriate. "Congratulations. How wonderful. When was the closing?" The words emerged correctly, which meant no one would know that something had shifted. Not audibly. Certainly not dramatically. Just a small realignment in my chest, the way a door settles slightly when the house temperature drops. 3 months earlier, I had bid on a house. Not Lake Forest. I'd narrowed my search to the better neighborhoods in Evanston, the ones with lake access and the sort of architectural dignity that suggested the structure itself had opinions. The bidding war was brief, but absolute. I lost by $17,000 to an out-of-state buyer. I remembered standing in the agent's office, holding the final counteroffer, watching the number climb beyond what I was willing to spend. Beyond what I had been willing to spend, which was everything I had saved for 5 years. I had told no one. Not Mother, not Father, certainly not Ethan. I simply called my agent back and said, "Let's keep looking." As Mother continued speaking, details about marble bathrooms and the excellence of the school district, despite that Ethan and Madison had no children, my phone buzzed. A bank alert. Someone had attempted to access the family trust account, the joint account I'd opened 15 years ago when Father had a heart scare and needed help consolidating his medical bills. The one I'd kept technically open, though dormant, because in families, dormant usually meant available for emergency. This was not an emergency. This was an attempt. Failed. But someone had tried. "Mother, I have to take another call," I said. She made a noise of mild disappointment and promised to send photographs. I hung up and called the bank. The representative was apologetic and efficient. There had been 3 unsuccessful attempts to access the account using outdated credentials. The system had locked it automatically. I was safer than I knew. "Did you authorize anyone on this account?" the representative asked. "No," I said. "Is anyone else listed?" "My father was added in 2011, but the account has been inactive for years." "Your father is listed as a secondary account holder," the representative confirmed. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat very still in my home office in Evanston, in the apartment I owned outright, surrounded by the life I had built by myself, and I began the kind of thinking that requires spreadsheets. The next morning, before client calls, before the chaos of managing 3 healthcare startup portfolios, I created a new document on my encrypted drive. I titled it, Family Financial Review, with the kind of clinical precision I used for client audits. Then I began to list. 15 years of transactions. Money transferred to my parents' accounts during their slow financial decline. When Father lost a consulting contract. When their home needed a new roof. When Mother's sister required emergency surgery and insurance fell short. I didn't count these as loans, because my family did not speak of family money as something that would be returned. That's what family meant. It meant not asking. It meant assuming your sister's success meant your brother's problems were temporarily hers to solve. I opened my email and searched by sender, by recipient, by amount. I created columns. Date, purpose, amount, approved, reimbursed, notes. $152,000. Over 15 years. Some in chunks. $50,000 when they refinanced. Some in dribs. 500 here, 300 there. All of it flowing in one direction. What I did not include in the spreadsheet was the texture of these moments. The phone calls where father's voice carried that edge of embarrassment that turned quickly to irritation. Mother's grateful enthusiasm, which somehow made it harder to discuss, because gratitude is harder to question than demand. The way I never said no. Not because I couldn't, but because I was the successful one. The one who didn't need help, which paradoxically meant I was the one who had to give it. At 4:15 that afternoon, I texted my attorney. Julia Reynolds specialized in white-collar financial crimes. We'd met 3 years ago when she was consulting on a case involving a biotech startup's founder and some creative accounting. She had the kind of mind that appreciated evidence over narrative. We'd gotten lunch, established a rapport. She had my mobile number now for situations that required clarity. "Can we schedule a call? Personal matter, possibly serious." She replied within minutes. "Tonight, 7 p.m.? By 6:55, I had prepared a summary document. Not the full spreadsheet. That was too preliminary, too accusatory. Just the outline of what I knew. The account access attempts. The Lake Forest house. The pattern of financial support that had never been reciprocated. The specific months and years." Julia answered on the first ring. "Tell me," she said, which I appreciated. No preamble, no assumption that this would be small. I did. Every detail, every date, every dollar. She listened without interrupting, which meant she was taking notes. "Do you have documentation?" she asked. "Everything's digital. Bank statements, transfer confirmations, account registrations. Get them organized, separate files, today's date on everything. And Claire?" She waited. "Don't mention this to anyone in your family, not even carefully. The line between suspicion and evidence is sometimes just better record-keeping." 2 weeks later, everything fit into labeled folders on my drive. That Friday, I made my way to Julia's office in downtown Chicago. The building was the kind of place that charged for the view and for the discretion. Her office was high enough to see the lake and small enough to feel serious. She'd printed pages, my own financial statements, bank records, email trails, all of it organized the way I had organized it. "There's a broader pattern here," Julia said, tapping a particular section. She'd made notes, underlined dates, drawn connections with arrows that looked less like financial analysis and more like detective work. "The account access attempts are concerning, but they're not the problem. They're a symptom." She showed me the pattern. Starting 3 years ago, small transactions to accounts I didn't recognize. $250, $400, $180. I had thought these were reimbursements. For what, I couldn't quite remember. Business expenses? Family dinners I'd covered? But the pattern was consistent. Always from my primary checking account. Always right after money had been requested. Always to accounts that, when Julia had dug deeper, belonged to Ethan, or Mother, or sometimes accounts without clear identification at all. "I think someone has access to your account," Julia said quietly. "More access than you've given them." The physical response was strange, not panic, something cooler than that, a kind of electric precision. My hands stopped shaking, my breathing steadied. My brain, which had been operating on half power for 2 weeks, suddenly accessed the full archive of every small discrepancy I'd ignored. "How much?" I asked. She showed me. $42,000. Over 3 years. The average transaction was $360. Small enough not to trigger alerts. Large enough collectively to matter. Could be unauthorized use of your account number. Could be someone with access to your statements and account details. Either way, it's theft. The word hung in her office like something I could touch. Theft. My family. Theft. "There's something else," Julia continued. She pulled up an image on her screen. It was a property registration document. My name was on it. A property I'd never purchased, never seen. A condo in Des Plaines, 30 minutes west, owned jointly in my name and father's. "I searched public records," Julia explained. "This was registered 6 years ago. Your name, your social security number, your signature, or at least a very good forgery of it. The property was mortgaged, $300,000. The loan is still active. The room didn't spin. Rooms don't. People do. And I didn't. Instead, I felt a crystalline clarity that made every previous worry seem like practice for this moment. "Who made the payments?" I asked. "The property was foreclosed on 2 years ago. Your credit report shows the default, the foreclosure, the judgment against you." I had not been aware I had lost a house. I had not been aware I owned one. "I need to ask you something," Julia said carefully. "Do you have any memory of signing anything? Anything your father asked you to co-sign?" I thought backward through 15 years of requests. Small things, mostly. "Could you just sign here?" "It's just paperwork. Dad needs it for the refinance." Nothing that seemed unusual at the time. Nothing that stood out against the vast landscape of family obligation. "I don't know," I said, and that was the truth. Julia made a decision right then. I could see it happen behind her eyes. She shifted from cautious to engaged. "I'm going to recommend 3 things. 1. File a police report. 2. Secure your credit immediately. 3. Stop having casual contact with your family. I mean complete information shutdown. Don't answer questions about finances. Don't attend family events where documentation might be requested. Don't hint. Don't theorize. Don't warn them. Silence." "They're my family," I said. "Which is why they've been stealing from you," Julia replied, not unkindly. Over the next week, I learned that silence has a texture. It's not the absence of noise. It's an active choice to let nothing escape. My mother texted asking if I was free for lunch. I replied that work was chaotic and I'd have to reschedule. Ethan called about borrowing my recommendations for a financial advisor. I said I was occupied and couldn't chat. Father emailed, asking about a login for a financial statement they'd apparently requested. I did not respond. None of this was dramatic. None of this was confrontational. It was simply the decision to stop performing normality. The police report was filed in Cook County. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Sarah Chen, seemed unsurprised by the details. She'd heard similar patterns before. Father, mother, brother, using whatever access they'd been given, combined with forged documents, combined with the kind of casual exploitation that happens when one family member is successful and everyone else has decided that success was communal property. Detective Chen began her own investigation. She pulled years of records. She requested bank security footage. She contacted the property company about the Des Plaines condo. The picture that emerged was methodical and devastating. Father had used my social security number at least 47 times. Mother had attempted to open credit cards in my name on 3 separate occasions. Ethan had used my account numbers to pay for renovations at his current house, the house before Lake Forest, before things got truly expensive. And my name, my signature, my identity, had been borrowed and spent and leveraged without my knowledge or consent. The total was approximately $473,000. Somewhere around day 12 of my silence, the discomfort in my family became obvious. Mother escalated to calls. Ethan tried a text asking if I was okay. Father simply sent a calendar invite to dinner, as if normalcy could be restored through scheduling. Then came the group chat. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't on the distribution list. But I was visiting a client in Pilsen when my phone buzzed with a misdirected message. Someone in the chain had included me by accident. The group, Mother, Father, Ethan, Madison, had been discussing me. The message that came through was from Father. "She's been distant. We should address this at the dinner." Ethan: "She'll get over it. She always does." Madison: "Maybe we should just ask her directly." Mother: "No. She's been in a mood. Let her come around. Besides, there's other things to discuss. That opportunity I mentioned." Ethan: "You mean the thing?" Mother: "Yes, the signature situation." Father: "We can handle Claire. She's too busy with work to notice anything. And even if she did, what would she do? Call the police? She won't jeopardize the family." It was the last sentence that went still in me. Not as a shock, as confirmation. They knew. They understood that they were dependent on my silence. They had built an entire architecture of assumption around my unwillingness to cause disruption. I left the group chat that moment. No announcement, no comment, just removed myself. That night, I sent Julia the screenshots. She read them, then called me. "They're planning something," she said. "A signature situation. Do you have any idea what they mean?" "No," I said. "Then we need to be very careful now. They know you're upset. They're moving towards some kind of action. The police investigation is still preliminary, but we need to accelerate." The acceleration came in the form of a family dinner invitation. Not casual. A formal request from Father, who rarely made requests. He wanted everyone together. Sunday evening. His house. 6 p.m. Julia's advice was simple. Attend. Say nothing. Record everything. The Sunday was gray and cold. Late January in Illinois presents itself as an accusation. I drove to my parents' house, a place I'd grown up, a place that now felt like a location I was visiting to gather evidence, and sat in my car for 5 minutes before entering. Mother answered the door with the warmth she deployed when she wanted something. Her house smelled of roasted chicken, and the carefully maintained aesthetic of people who wanted to seem like the kind of people who ate roasted chicken casually. The dining room table was set with real plates, real stemware. This was the kind of dinner that expected civility. Everyone was already there. Father at the head of the table, Mother to his right, Ethan and Madison across from each other. A space for me at the foot of the table, the place of honor in some traditions, the place of distance in others. The first 20 minutes were theatrical. How's work? Ethan's renovations are finally complete. Madison's looking at property management certification, the kind of surface conversation that functions as a moat around actual feelings. I participated minimally. I smiled when it seemed necessary. I let my phone record everything. Then Father set down his fork with a specific kind of precision. "There's something we need to discuss," he began. He had the tone of a man about to deliver bad news that he'd already decided was not his fault. "We've made some difficult decisions as a family." Mother reached over and touched his arm. The gesture was supportive, or it was collusive. Probably both. "You've been very successful, Claire," Father continued. "We're proud of you. That success has allowed you to be independent, to not need help, which has been wonderful." I said nothing. "But family is about more than just individual success," he continued. "It's about shared responsibility. Your mother and I have made some choices over the years that were based on the assumption that you would understand the importance of family unity." The phrase was carefully constructed. Not an admission, not quite an accusation, just a suggestion that everyone had been operating under the same ethical framework, and he was simply inviting me to acknowledge it. "There are some matters that need to be clarified," Father concluded. "Legally, financially. Your mother has a document that needs your signature." Mother pulled out a manila folder. Inside was a notarized letter confirming that our family had a long-standing verbal agreement about shared finances. A family partnership, essentially. All assets were considered joint, subject to mutual approval. All debts were shared. All income was available to the unit. "We need you to sign confirming that arrangement," Mother said softly. "It'll make everything clearer. Everyone's already agreed to it." The letter was blank except for that paragraph. Everyone had already signed. The space for my signature was marked with a small arrow. "I'm not signing that," I said. The response was immediate. Father's face hardened. Mother looked wounded. Ethan started to speak and Madison put a hand on his arm. "You need to understand," Father began. "I understand perfectly," I said. "I'm not signing it." The dinner table had become very still. I could hear Madison's breathing. I could see Ethan's jaw working, the way it did when he was angry and trying not to show it. "You're being unreasonable," Father said, using that word in the way he always had, to mean, "You are disagreeing with me and I have decided that makes you irrational. This family has supported you. We invested in your education. We helped you get started. I had paid them back for education. I had financed the investments. You're not being a team player, Mother added, which was worse than Father's accusation because it was designed to wound. You're isolating yourself. This is about seeing yourself as more important than your family. I'm not signing the document, I said again. Ethan finally spoke. You're being a bitch about this. Madison inhaled sharply. This isn't complicated, Ethan continued, warming to his anger. We're family. You have money. We needed help. You helped. Now we need you to make it official and stop acting like you're the victim. I didn't know I'd authorized you to take anything, I said. My voice was steady. Steady was important. I didn't know I'd co-signed a property I've never seen. I didn't know someone had been accessing my accounts without permission. I discovered all of this 2 weeks ago. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence. The kind that happens when someone has said something that cannot be unsaid or softened or reframed as a misunderstanding. Father's face went very still. Mother's hand dropped from the table. What are you talking about? Father asked. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery. I've already filed a police report. I watched the moment they understood. It happened across all their faces at once. That specific realization that consequences had shifted from theoretical to imminent. Father had gone white. Mother looked as if she might be sick. Ethan was doing the calculation. What could he say? What could he do? What could he claim was a misunderstanding? You wouldn't do that to your family, Mother said. But it was a question. She was asking if I would, if I could, if I had already. I already have, I replied. The dinner ended without resolution. I left within minutes. In my car, I sent Julia a message. It's done. She replied, Send me the recording. Don't discuss further. The investigation moved quickly after that. Detective Chen had been waiting for confirmation from inside the family. Confirmation that they understood what they had done. The recording provided that. The police obtained search warrants. They collected more documentation. They spoke to a forensic accountant. By mid-February, the charges were formalized. Wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, forgery. The charges were primarily against Father, with secondary charges against Mother. Ethan's involvement was murkier. He'd benefited from the theft, but hadn't been the one to execute it. His lawyer was working on a deal. I did not watch this unfold. I did not attend court dates. Julia handled everything. She was, I realized, the kind of person who existed for exactly these moments, when family collapsed into evidence and evidence had to be marshaled into consequences. My part was simply silence and documentation. Then came the moment Julia had been building toward. A meeting in her office. My parents' attorney was present, along with Father and Mother. No Ethan. He was being handled separately. Julia had maneuvered them into a position where they had to choose, criminal trial or settlement. The trial would be public. The settlement would be private, bound by non-disclosure agreements that prevented them from discussing what had happened with anyone except their attorney and immediate family. I sat across from my parents for the first time in 2 months. Mother looked diminished. As if the knowledge of what she'd done was taking up space she'd previously occupied with dignity. Father looked angry. As if betrayal. The fact that I'd reported him, that I'd acted on evidence instead of accepting family mythology, was somehow something I'd done to him. Julia laid out the numbers. $473,000. Interest on the theft. Restitution for legal fees. The total came to slightly more than $600,000. My clients cannot pay that amount, their attorney said. That's why we're offering a monthly agreement, Julia replied, sliding across a document. 36 months. Approximately $16,000 per month. That's impossible, the attorney said. It's also the alternative to prosecution, Julia replied. Your clients can liquidate assets or restructure their finances, but they will pay. The question is whether they do so through the civil settlement or through the criminal justice system. There was a moment. Just a moment. When Father was calculating whether he could survive either outcome. He chose the settlement. The paperwork took weeks. The house was listed. Investments were liquidated. The comfortable life they'd built on comfortable assumptions about their daughter's infinite patience was systematically converted into numbers that owed me, and called it justice, though I wasn't sure justice was quite the right word for a transaction between people who were related by blood. The first payment came in April. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel satisfied. What I felt was lightness, specifically the sensation of someone setting down a weight they'd been carrying so long they'd forgotten they were heavy. I purchased a house that summer. Not in Evanston this time, though Evanston would have been fine. I purchased a house in Lake Forest, smaller than Ethan's, less ostentatious, but completely mine. No loans, no contingencies, no one's name but mine on the title. The closing happened on a Tuesday. Julia attended. We stood in the real estate attorney's office, and I signed my name over and over again. Every signature genuine, every line authorized by me alone. That night, I invited Julia and my colleague Nora to the house. We ordered Thai food. We sat on the empty floor of the living room and drank wine from mugs because I didn't have glasses yet. Nora asked if I was happy. I said I didn't know. I was something else. I was present. I was untethered. I was learning that freedom sometimes looks less like joy and more like clarity. By September, the monthly payments had become routine. Automatic transfers from Father's account to mine. By October, my estranged cousin Lauren contacted me through a mutual acquaintance. We met for coffee in Evanston, on the waterfront, watching the lake do its thing. They did the same thing to me, Lauren said, telling me a story that was my story but not. Different amounts, different years, but the same architecture of theft wrapped in family language, the same expectation of silence, the same realization when the silence finally broke, that they'd never had permission to steal from her either. "How did you leave?" I asked. "Badly," she said. "I just left. Moved to Portland. Changed my number. Let them think I was crazy. Turns out that was the narrative they preferred. The alternative, that they'd stolen from me, was worse than the narrative where I was mentally unstable and therefore unreliable." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because they're going to tell other people a story about you. They're going to say you're ungrateful, cruel, that you betrayed your family for money. I came to tell you that I know the truth. And I came to tell you that if you ever need to hear from someone else that you did the right thing, I'm here." I drove home slowly. Through the neighborhoods of Evanston I could never quite afford before. Past the house I'd lost in the bidding war. Past all the places I'd thought represented success because they belonged to other people. My house was on a quiet street. It had a porch that actually faced the lake, if you craned your neck. It needed new landscaping. The kitchen was dated, but it was mine. And more importantly, it was silent in a way that meant peace instead of burden. I stood in the driveway as the sun was setting and felt the sensation of someone finally arriving at the place they'd been trying to reach for years. The restitution is still being paid. 17 months to go. Father barely speaks to me. Mother sends cards on my birthday that I don't open. Ethan, facing his own minor legal consequences, chose to publicly criticize me on social media, a choice that resulted in precisely the family attention he'd been trying to avoid, as consequences often do. But I'm not thinking about them anymore. I'm thinking about the house. I'm thinking about the consulting firm I've begun to build, one that specializes in financial literacy for people who've been financially exploited. I'm thinking about the memoir a podcaster asked me to contribute to, about family financial abuse hidden behind love. I'm thinking about how clarity, once achieved, becomes something you can't live without. How spreadsheets are sometimes kinder than conversations. How the people we love can be the people who damage us most. Not because they're malicious, but because we never ask them not to. The power was never in the screaming. The power was in the spreadsheet. The power was in the silence. The power was in understanding that independence isn't cruelty, it's just independence. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is the refusal to be the one who carries everything. Sometimes love means letting people live with what they've done. I'm learning to be okay with that.